Hello, SpeedGaming. Welcome to the No Logic Tournament semifinals match between Krithel and Chexhuman. This is double elimination tournament with Krithel and Chex in the lower bracket finals. They have played one game already, so Chex is ahead 1, and we are awaiting the results of this one to go into the finals. I am joined by JD Silvergun. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you, Malmo?
Doing well. I've been missing these races as the tournament winds down. There haven't been nearly as many of them, but they're still as fresh as ever. Every time we have one of these races, there's new tech, and this is no exception. New tech was discovered 2 days ago. That was hopefully designed to prevent the problem that lost Krithel the race in the last game, which is the super NT hardware difference that prevents him from doing a certain glitch. So I don't know if this has been enough time for him to learn, but knowing him, you know, if he's had the time, I bet he at least gave it a shot. Hoping that it doesn't come up.
No, I wasn't aware that he had worked out a solution for that, but that's really cool. And yeah, I agree. I've been missing these races as well. I think this is, in my opinion, the most interesting mode for A Link to the Past randomizer, because the situations are like so fluid, and like the multiple solutions to different problems that arise. I don't know, I just really can't get enough of it.
Yeah, you are in a lot of ways in control of your destiny. There are still some luck elements like the fire rod and ice rod usually being required, and you know, we do put 2 of them in the pool, each one, but that doesn't mean that we don't have rod hunts. No, it doesn't mean we don't have sword hunts sometimes. The tech that I described was actually discovered by our tracker, Mr. Beyer, so give him a shout out as well. He's not just tracking this race, he's been an integral part of the No Logic community, especially in the last few months.
Yeah, definitely. Mr. Byer's a pioneer, and I do his Bolas Eastern strat sometimes when I have to. It's a really good one.
All right, and we are off with Chex starting in his signature Sanctuary opener. He likes to go immediately up the mountain, finds the big key to Thieves Town, which is useful in a couple different ways, including Thieves Town, but not in the way you might expect. The sword on the island. I think that's dupeable, but I also think you just want a sword now, so Krithel's going for that. I wouldn't turn this down either, because if you want to dupe it, you need to come back with a bottle, and you might not find one of those for a while.
Yeah, I don't know if every freestanding overworld item is dupable with a YBA, but several of them I personally have done, like the floating island or the dam item, but some of them it seems to not work, so I couldn't tell you if that one is actually dupable, but it's a good find for sure.
Yeah, that one's finicky because you have to like load the item in because of the way the randomizer freestanding items work for it to work. But there are other opportunities to find a sword, and if another sword is found, that's good enough to beat Ganon. So Check's heading into the Lost Woods. He checked Lumberjack and it was just a rupee. I think Krithel tends to skip Lumberjack, which will buy him a little bit of time. Most No Logic games don't finish in small differences. They usually finish in large differences because of how freely the runners can route differently. But sometimes you do get a game that comes down to small efficiencies like that. Little skips here and there. Lots of small keys flying around. Hera and Swamp both used to unlock Swamp Palace. Good. Depends on where you enter Swamp from. Front door or the back door.
Yeah, well, if the Swamp Small has increased value if you know how to use Samaria to flood the dam from desert, the way I learned from runners like Chex and Tam, so I think that's an interesting point.
I have been seeing a lot more front door entry into Swamp lately. You can also fake Clipper in the front to get into the middle, and if you have the small key, it makes your life a lot easier. And sometimes you
That's
just
true.
have the mirror and the hammer and the hook shot and the flippers. It happens, believe it or not. Oh, look at this bottle. Krithel having a bottle and a sword already. Bottles are really good glitching items for no logic. They are probably the most versatile item. You can fill them with potions that have various effects when used in certain ways. Check's getting absolutely bullied. Dead rocks in the mountain. Look at the old man. He got knocked so low that old man went out of bounds slightly before going into his cave. It's a very fitting journey for him to make. Chex is also very skilled at this teleport that gets you off the mountain onto Graveyard Ledge. There are other ways to do that. I think most people will go on the other side and do something that's not a teleport. The teleport is a little more pixel precise and you have to be quick or you'll get knocked around by cabbages.
Oh yeah, that's very precise. The other way, you just have to clip in like 2 or 3 times a dash turn and hold diagonal, and you get there. I mean, but Chex is very, very skilled, though. He does it very quickly. That's why he mains it.
Yeah, I do believe that will save time if you can pull it off. I missed the green pendant call out from Sahasrala. I imagine it'll be showing up on our tracker, though. Nice fire rod for Krithel in the closet. I think Chex is heading that direction as well. He might go for the sword first. Ooh, he won't. I think Chex likes to peek that item on the way out of Ice Rod Cave. So it was Misery Mire as our green pendant. It's a convenience because Mire can be a pain when you don't have the medallion or the cane, big key, and so on.
Yeah, Mire definitely is one of the most horrible dungeons in No Logic, depending on the seed.
I'd expect Krithel to go up the mountain, but he actually has enough items to make Kakariko more appealing than it would be from the start. He has a bottle, and he has a fire source and a sword. He can actually fight Lammo with that equipment, and do a few other things.
Yeah, that's true, but there are a lot of reasons why you might want to hold off on a Kakariko into desert play. Well, I don't know. The thing about Lanmo is without the mirror, he might have to collect the prize if he doesn't want to save and quit, I guess. I don't know. There's situations when you might not want to do desert early.
I don't expect him to go for Lammo. First he would have to get a green potion because of his console doesn't allow VRAM crashes. The ones that corrupt your graphics will crash his game. So he has to get the one that doesn't, which is a bit of a disadvantage. Can be a lot of a disadvantage depending on your end game equipment. But also, it's not necessarily the best use of a bottle in desert at this stage. A recently popular thing to do with the bottle is to go to Thieves Town Attic and bomb it open. Saves a little time if you're gonna come in from Cave State into Thieves Town. You don't have to bomb the attic. You can actually take the maiden straight to the boss room instead of having to go to the maiden twice.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that route, and sometimes the item you get is really good too.
No, Chex. Chex just unloaded his entire fire rod clip into those 2 Moldorms and not hit a single one. Because Moldorms suck. And he throws one bomb and hits both. Sometimes it's better to just stick with what you know, and No Logic players are usually very practiced at bomb strats in there, because that's often all you have.
Yeah.
Speaking of green potions, Chex finds a green potion, and he does his first underworld glitch to get to King's Tomb. This is a bomb juke. Gets you on the wrong side of the door, so you can go in the wrong way and end up inside a room that's above the room you were in.
He did that very quickly. That was really nice.
I think he did it with 1 bomb, which is very impressive. 1 bombing it is like super hard, in my opinion. Or at least it's like hard to be consistent at. It can be done, it's just hard.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't even go for the 1 bomb strat. I just main 2 bombs because it's way, way, way easier.
Yeah, and you can do it without taking a ton of damage. You get hit by the first bomb, and then you can just throw the second bomb and not get hit by it. So health isn't really the factor there. Bombs are an important resource, as you can see by Chex lifting up bushes. He likes to pick up bombs on the way up. He's the only person I know who does this south to north route. Usually he goes up all the way to the top and then loops back around to desert. I have on occasion seen him not do that and just skip maze race and skip desert forever. Just interesting, because that could be a significant disadvantage if something good is there.
Yeah, Chex definitely doesn't like to stay committed to like a full route. Like sometimes he'll just bail on it and something if he wants to, because just to save time, I guess. And yeah, desert is normally part of the overworld in glitched modes. That's a really good point that you brought up.
Oh yeah, we do start with boots. That's a staple of glitch modes. If you want an extra challenge, there are presets that don't, but it's more done as a challenge rather than a standard way of playing. The thing you gotta understand about the glitch community is this has become the default mode of play for a lot of us. This is our version of casual boots. Like, this is just how we do the game. So the way you think about how you go around the world changes a lot. And you think about locations as being adjacent to each other physically, because they often are. You can just hop walls, and you can, in the underworld, you can go through doors and link adjacent dungeons together.
So we've already seen 2 of the cave state big keys, so I wonder if they will be making a Hyrule Castle play anytime soon, or if they'll just avoid it with both rods being available, as we just saw.
Yeah, it definitely shifts the calculus a bit when you have rods and a sword to skip checks that are not actually making progress in the game. Both runners, if they wanted to, could complete Thieves Town with their equipment. And, you know, that's checks. It's more checks in there than there are in Kakariko. That will get you potentially a crystal. Krithel having the sword advantage. Chex has not gotten the sword yet. This is something he will probably do much later, given that he's already done South Shore and done that by itself. He's not doing it with the flipper checks like you might do in like overworld glitches. He's doing it. He plans to do that with Hobo. That's the way to do it now.
Yeah, definitely.
And there he is, saving and quitting out of Blind's hideout. I think Chex is recently taking a dislike to walking out of Blind's hideout because it's slow to do that. You have to go up a spiral stairs, and then you have to do another world transition, and then you have to run all the way down Kakariko Village just to do Maze Race. And maybe he's not thinking about desert yet. I would be thinking about desert. This is good equipment for desert.
Yeah, I've watched Chex play a lot, and he definitely does like to try to mix up his routing, I've noticed. Like, I've seen him do Hyrule Castle, but not do Uncle. He's just like, oh, I feel like that's a separate play, just because he doesn't want to take the time to, like, go all the way out there or whatever. Oh, nice. We're getting a juke.
Ooh, yeah, this is actually really tough. But he gets it like it's nothing. It's a frame-perfect trick, and I don't mean, like, you can select buffer it. You have to just tap. Do a one-frame tap, and it's pretty hard.
Yeah, for those that aren't aware, I was just going to say that juke is different than the one we saw earlier, because it's an auto door. That's what makes it frame perfect.
Yeah,
and you can see now he's in the pyramid.
The one that he did and the other one is, you can be select buffered, and even if you don't, it's lenient enough that you don't have to do a one-frame tap. This is how he does... I like doing this too. This is like how you can get to Uncle from Back of Escape. Saves you a save and quit, gets you the pyramid item on the way. So it's not necessarily faster than walking from Link's house, but it does give you a check that you wouldn't have otherwise. Look at him having full crystal info in the light world.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to say earlier, the seat's been fairly generous with maps so far, which is definitely not always the case.
Alright, that's a Master Sword for Krithel. And 2 bottles. If Trinex is a pendant, and Swamp is a pendant, this could be not go mode, but like really close to it for him. I say not go mode, but it could actually be go mode. It's not completely out of the question.
Yeah, and we know that the ice rod is in Kakariko, so that's not too hard to find. He just has to choose to go there.
Did we see an ice rod? Because I see on the
I could
tracker,
have sworn.
maybe he found 2 fire rods. Oh, he does have
I
the
know.
ice rod.
I could have sworn we saw the ice rod in the back of the bar, but there was a fire rod in blinds as well as the back of Saha's.
Well,
So those are both the fire rods.
Yeah, you say you see the ice rod in the back of the bar. I see the ice rod in the back of that guard, because Chex just killed a blue guard with it, and that confirms that, yes, we do have it. That's one of the quirks of the ice rod, is that it does insta-shot blue guards, but not green guards, because they're different. Wow, look at this early pod play for Krithel. He is bold. He's a bold player. He likes to lean on his execution. And one of the things he will probably go for here is an auto door bomb juke, just like Chex did. That gets you to hook shot cave, and then hover hook shot cave, and do some other stuff. He also finds the hammer here in shooter room. That's a good find. It's a good weapon, if nothing else.
Hammer is a luxury you can never count on having in No Logic.
Hammer does surprisingly little in terms of accessing locations, but it's kind of useful just for like damage output. Like when you have the Master Sword, it's fun, but when you're on the Fighter Sword or no sword, having the hammer is a godsend.
Yeah, I really hate doing Master Sword Trinex, so the hammer always makes me feel safer, because often we use potions to get to Trinex, so we don't have, like, any magic extensions, even unless you happen to have, like, half magic, or depending on the seed you're playing, obviously.
So Krithel is in pod, but he got here from screen wrapping off the bottom of the map from a cave. So he's in cave state, which means doors don't matter. You can just unlock them for no cost. And also, he doesn't have enemies in the dungeon.
Yeah, there's too much to explain in this mode. Yeah, that was a clip called Kiki Skip. It's seen in a lot of vanilla glitched speedruns as well. That wraps the entire underworld map, like you said.
And I think Chex is about to get his sword information. I imagine he will see it on the way out of Ice Rod Cave. When he has his water walk, he likes to dash by it. So he won't necessarily get it now, but he'll at least know it's there. And that might make the Death Mountain play more appealing to him, where he can go get his second sword.
Yeah, I don't think either... Sorry, go ahead.
I thought I was crazy that I saw Krithel go up the stairs and down the stairs, but I think I just imagined it.
I missed it, sorry.
I think I just imagined it. He got a heal, which is really nice, because if he wants to bomb juke, he does need to be able to take damage from a bomb, and he wouldn't have been able to before. It's also a little bit risky to hover without any health. He's probably going to go for a hover here. Yeah, look at this. This is a hard hover, but he's really good at hard hovers. It's kind of... I would say it's his thing, but he has a lot of things that he's good at because he's willing to put in the effort to learn them. And there you go. He gets it.
Oh, Chad is confirming that you were correct. He did. I think he got the stair suck glitch, which I've noticed can happen in like any dungeon in cave state. It just seems random. Like if you bonk on accident, like other things can trigger the stair suction glitch. So I guess you were right.
Yeah, it's related to having EG armed, but I'm not sure if he's actually jumped anywhere like that.
Oh,
Alright, Krithel is doing the frame perfect part of the glitch, which is he gets it a couple tries in, which is like pretty good for a frame perfect glitch. Chex gets a very fast version of the Zora ledge clip. It's a little more precise than just clipping through. You can just clip through randomly and get on the ledge and be able to walk around, but to get into the vents, you have to be a little bit more precise.
yeah, and that version of it is risky too, because you can get stuck in a soft lock and then not even get the item too. So that was, that's bold to go for that, but obviously he pulled it off.
Okay, so Krithel's juke put him in a position to get back to the spot with an unlocked camera. And now he's in Hookshot Cave. and he can explore the top of Death Mountain in the fake Dark World because he never actually went to the Light World. But I think he will go for these hovers first. Just, this is risky.
Okay.
Yeah, this is risky because he has to like get it without taking too much damage.
Yeah, that's true. Since he's in cave state, he will not restart in the dungeon. He will, just have to choose his save and quit on the overworld.
He's gonna go for it again, which he does have the option to like walk out and in again to get his fairies back in the cave and get a heal. But to get back in, he has to do a clip, and it's very slow. And I think he just wants to do the hover correctly, and he gets that one. No, it's funny.
Krithel is not going to go to the ferry. Krithel does not do things that are slow, if I know anything about Krithel.
Okay, so Krithel is in cave state pod, but now he's just back in a normal cave and finds the pod big key. What kind of vanilla is that? Is that like vanilla bean?
I missed it. It said,
we were having this discussion on someone's stream last night. Right? Yeah, it did. It was not at this dungeon key because Hookshot Cave is not a dungeon. It's almost like it wrapped around to being correct again. So he does actually get the pod big key from that. Because he's not really in pod, as far as the game is concerned. Vanilla extract, I like that one. It's almost like vanillin, like fake vanilla, because you think you're in pod, but you never actually were in pod, and you're actually just back in the cave again. Everything is fake and nothing matters. He's gotta let go. Oh, he has a fairy. He must have known that. Because the hovering on 2 hearts in Hookshot Cave is... I know he's a risk taker, but I don't know if he would have done that without a fairy.
That's right. The Zora Ledge bottle did come with a fairy, now that you mention it. And yeah, I mean, it's funny that he got that key because that's our other cave state key.
So Chex has done his chores in the Zora Ledge area, got his sword, and now he's in desert, which we haven't seen yet, because Krithel hasn't been to Kakariko. So there's some new information coming up ahead, as well as Krithel showing us Ice Armos, which is behind this door here. Did you know that? There's a door to Ice Armos on the back of Hookshot Cave. Just say the password.
I did.
The password is press up and Y at the same time.
With a red or green potion.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that part. Sword beams are actually not the worst weapon. This fight sucks no matter what you're doing it with because the water melts in the cave. Apparently there's some geothermal energy going on here. The Armos don't take knockback when they're in the water. In fact, they can even get knocked into you. Look at how
physics are very different, dude.
It's getting knocked into him. This is ridiculous.
A little global warming there.
Alright, and again, thank you to our tracker who has to figure out what the heck Krithel just got here in back of Armos. I heard a heart piece. He may or may not be running his auto tracker. He probably is because he's on the Super NT, but he's also on a jank setup on the moon, so who knows what he's able to do with auto tracking. But that does help a lot when you're in this situation, knowing what items you got. You can also quick swap through them to see. You can open your menu, or you can just not notice you have flippers for 30 minutes and finish the game without them.
So we're getting a quadrant glitch from Chex.
Yeah,
so by desyncing yourself from the coordinates in the room, the game doesn't know what quadrant you're in, so when you take a transition, you can see that he's accessing the right side without using a key.
So Krithel is now in the front of Ganon's tower. Still in cave state, because he's been in Hookshot Cave. Proper Hookshot Cave this time, not Spectacle Rock Cave version. He has his sprites. If he went directly in there from that juke, he would be broken camera and wouldn't be able to progress through here, but he's went outside, went to Super Bunny Cave and so on. The hammer makes this very lucrative for him because he can go all the way to Random Room and get everything except for the Samaria locked items.
I mean, I would argue technically he could have gotten most of that anyway since he has 2 bottles, but this is way more convenient.
Oh, yeah. Meanwhile, Chex is in Eastern. So Eastern with no big key, no bow. I wonder what he has in mind here. Did he just skip a check? Did you see Chex? Did you see Chex get the first chest in Eastern?
I do not think he did. No, he could be. I don't know, doing a quadrant glitch there, but he would be trapped without the big key. Is my understanding of that route. So I don't know.
He's already been in Eastern. Doing what?
How do we miss that? Jeez.
What? He's opening chests here. I don't know. I'm so confused. Meanwhile, and also like Krithel has, look at his heart count. He has like 20 hearts and Chex has 5. What is this? Power of Hair Big Key is nice. That's a bottle for Chex. It's the 3rd bottle, which is 3 is like the maximum bottles you'll ever need in a no logic seed. Usually 2 is enough.
We're seeing a... Sorry, I got excited. We're seeing a Meyer play from Chex. This is why he was here, I guess. The YBA in that door conveniently takes you to the front door of Meyer.
So has Krithel actually found anything in Ganon's Tower?
The Big Key of Hera, which is
kind of nice. Big Key of Hera is pretty...
but...
Yeah, it's actually really good when you don't have a hook shot. You can just do that now, and it's a crystal. So he'll be the first one to get a crystal if he chooses that, but he's going to choose to activate his flute and go to Kakariko, because when you have the flute, there's really no reason to put off Kakariko any longer, because you can go back anytime you want. And having the flute will be way more valuable if you activate it earlier rather than later. So he'll get his Ice Rod, and he's going to have to make some really hard choices about Go Mode. He needs Swamp to be a pendant if he's in Go Mode.
Yeah, we haven't seen like the Dark World proper yet from either of them, just fake Dark World, so I don't think we have any like prize info from the maps that they've been picking up.
It's looking increasingly likely given that we have 3 pendants in the light world. But it's true that when you lack the Moon Pearl, No Logic gives you so many underground paths to Dark World dungeons that you almost never just go to the Dark World. You're always going into like Eastern Mire and Cave Pod, and these are all light world locations, so you don't actually get a chance to check your map, even if you do have the maps to those dungeons. Chex is in Eastern Mire, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Doesn't look like he's finding a lot here either. He's still on his first sword because he hasn't been up the mountain yet.
I was just going to say for our viewers that don't know that the game still thinks he's in Eastern because that was the last entrance he entered from the overworld and used a potion glitch, a YBA, to get here. So if he were to somehow complete the dungeon, he would get Eastern's prize. I don't know, and it's checking if he has the Eastern big key and small keys right now because that's his dungeon ID, etc. Yada yada.
Yeah, chat is also asking about why we're seeing double with regards to these rods, and it's because that we put 2 rods in the pool to make sure that the game is beatable, and also that the rod hunt doesn't determine most races like it often does, because it's like one of the only items you actually need for the game, and everyone else, you can find like everything and not have the ice rod and be just looking all over the world. And it's so bad for races, and it gets boring if you're overpowered. So these double rod modes make you a little bit more likely to be in these positions where you have to think about low % go modes against a skilled opponent. And that's what we got right now. We got 2 people who are like 1 item short from go mode right now.
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned that this is a Crystal Boss's goal. That's a self-imposed rule, like from like the rules of the tournament. Like it's not actually required to like beat the seed normally. You just need the crystals. You don't have to actually defeat all the Crystal Bosses, but to make it more interesting, that's part of the rules for racing this mode that have been generally agreed upon. So that's why double rods, so that Trinex is less of an issue. So did Chex find anything in Meyer?
I don't think he did. I think he found the bottle in Eastern, and that's the last good thing he got. Just like how Krithel's last good thing was. Well, he got some nice things, but the last like important thing he got was the hammer and pod.
Yeah, the bottle was definitely in Eastern in the compass chest, I believe.
Oh, we're both in desert. This is the first time I've seen the 2 of them together since the game started.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Chex is showing us a good example for those that aren't familiar of the fake worlds. He did a screen transition off of the Meyer screen and it loaded the light world. That's how he was able to get to desert so quickly.
It's a neat way for him to do this. He's probably still never checking Maze Race, but he at least gets to do desert. Because I don't know how else he would have gotten here from a routing perspective. He would have to just make a dedicated trip otherwise. And this is very clever for him to link it in with the Eastern Meyer play. Eastern into Meyer into desert isn't something you think about in normal modes. It's very much a glitch mode thing. Chex is setting up YBA, Yuzuharu's Bottle Adventure. It's a potion glitch you do in a door. He misses it and drinks the potion. So he's going to try again with a different color. I think he wants to refill his health a little bit so he can bomb snap in the door without dying.
Yeah,
or he's just going to leave.
Unfortunate.
Maybe he doesn't have another potion. Yeah, missing YBAs is tough. I mean, you think about how much time it takes to get another bottle and go back. It's a little bit tilting. And it's really rare for Chex to do. I would not be playing around with this. Okay. He's actually fine. It just looks scary.
Yeah.
There's a hard lock transition, but it's to his left, and he wasn't going in that direction.
I was going to say, it might be worth mentioning that that was actually a spin YBA, so that depending on how your hands are, how you want to grip the controller, that can be argued that that is more difficult to execute than a regular YBA.
Yeah, you have to do... I don't know how other people do it. I like roll my thumb onto it from Y, and it just works, but if you're usually doing like a one-handed technique, I don't know how you would do that with the spin. That just seems really hard. When did Chex get powder?
Yeah,
Powder's actually a really good item in No Logic. It can set variables. Oh, okay, it's a good item because it has the moon pearl on it. So if that was in Meyer, maybe we don't see that on Krithel's side. That can be a huge difference maker. Moon Pearl is one of the biggest force multipliers in No Logic. It's something that you take for granted when playing No Glitches, but in No Logic, you're not guaranteed to ever get a Moon Pearl. And if you do have it, it's like finding the boots. You know, it's a huge speed boost.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's like a movement item, basically. It speeds you up for Dark World traversal. And Krithel also did the auto-door bomb juke at Back of Escape.
Rex has the opportunity to check Maze Race. Oh, but he's not going to. That's oh my goodness. Maybe he checked it earlier. I don't know. I don't think he did.
I think Chex is not thinking about doing item checks. I think he's just
You think he's
thinking
in go
about
mode?
anything on the way. Well, not without the sword, but he thinks he might be thinking there's a sword on the way.
This is such a Chex thing to do. He likes to play for the earliest possible go mode. Krithel does too, but he's not actually in go mode if Swamp's a crystal. He probably needs one more bottle to negotiate things as well. Chex actually has all three. This is an awful, awful go mode though. Like, to the point where even if you're really skilled at it, you can probably save time just by opening chests and finding something that you're missing.
Well, he gets the YBA this time. Some nice VRAM corruption.
Yeah, that's the thing Krithel can't do on his console. It will crash his console. So it's a little bit unbalanced between them in that regard. But there's a lot of ways to avoid it. Like, he could just use a different color potion on this one. Swamp is the one where actually he doesn't have a choice and can't use the bottle at all. He has to find a different way. Nice bow in what is this place called? I never go here. Thank you. What's this place called that I always skip? That has the bow in it for Krithel. That's a really good item for him, because Eastern without a bow sucks.
Yeah, that is a really good find with this crystal arrangement. Bowless Eastern, if you don't have hook pushing, is really slow, usually.
So we did see
Or
Chex
just difficult.
He didn't go into Castle Tower, so Chex will not get that bow, almost certainly, unless he does something with Swamp, and I don't think he will, because he usually likes to take the flipperless swim way, which is tricky. It's kind of like mimic clipping yourself through the wall. It sucks.
Yeah, Chex had no way into Castle Tower since he just approached, like, Uncle from the front, and Krithel had Master Sword, so he just decided to go in.
Yeah, both of them actually did the same approach. They did the bomb jig from Back of Escape, and the difference is that sword that Krithel has.
Yeah, I normally always route the castle, like, from the north with, like, the river or moat clip, whatever you want to call it, because of getting the extra check in Castle Tower, but obviously there's, like, a million different ways to do things in this mode.
Yeah, I guess you're trading off extra check in Castle Tower to extra check on Pyramid Ledge, which kind of depends on which one you want to do.
Or if you have the mirror or not.
Yeah, Pyramid Ledge is arguably easier to return to. If you find the Moon Pearl, you can just go there. But Castle Tower isn't something you'll ever return to unless you get really desperate. We have not seen Upstairs Hera yet. I think that's where Krithel is going now. This is a no-brainer. You just climb the dungeon and you do Moldorm. Moldorm always dies in no logic. He has so many crystals, not just his own. He often has crystals of other dungeons like Swamp and Mire.
Yep.
Krithel got his key from Ganon's Tower. The Chex doesn't have that, so he will continue across the mountain and will find maybe his go mode sword in Paradox Cave. Let's watch his reaction when he picks up that sword. See what happens.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's no way that either of them missed those swords in this seed, but I mean, I could have been wrong, but it looks like Chex is going to do the mountain after all.
Ooh, get Moldorm. Hammer Moldorm is like deceptively difficult. I can say that because I fell twice last time I did it.
Yeah, Moldorm's just one of those bosses where it's like, no matter how many times you do it right, you could still fall.
Chex continuing to open chests because this go mode sucks. But what he does next might be a little bit more progress focused than, even more so than what he's been doing. So maybe we'll see Thieves Town, maybe we'll see Ice Palace. Skullwoods is a good option.
Yeah, Skullwoods is a really good option in No Logic because you can just clip off the mountain. It's a very easy place to go to. And in Key Sanity, it has lots of items.
I also suspect that maybe he wants Dark World dungeon information, and he hasn't been to the Dark World yet. So he can do that. Skullwoods, go to the Dark World. Let's see if Krithel presses X here. Okay, so we have Ice and Thieves Town as crystals. That puts one more in favor of swapping a pendant for Krithel. It's really what he wants to see here. And he is doing, yeah, I want to say both of them will do the same thing. They both want to see their maps in the Dark World. Chex hasn't been to Pod yet, so maybe he does that. He's going to blind check the Spectacle Rock Cave item because he hasn't gone in there yet, and then he will go to Pod.
Krithel did what was called a citrus clip to get off of the mountain.
Yeah, it's a technique to clip one frame at a time. It's select buffering makes one frame clipping very manageable. It's not like the bomb juke where you have to just tap. It's very manageable. So when you have the ability to just do that, getting into the Dark World's not so bad, but there are still some things that you need to be Link for, and there are ways to be Link, but they're not very fast. The one way to be Link is to just die in a dungeon, and that's what Krithel will do here. Chex will get his hammer in Pod, and I expect that instead of going to Hookshot Cave, he will just do Pod because he is in some kind of go mode and probably just wants to get dungeons done and see what his dungeons give him prize-wise. So this will be a really easy way for him to check the Prod Crystal, just killing Helmasaur.
Yeah, that was an interesting point that you brought up, that Chex hadn't been to Pod yet. Pod is just kind of a freebie in this mode, as we just saw Krithel like loot the place earlier. It's a really good spot to come if you don't, especially if you don't have weapons, because there are no enemies and lots of items. I think you're right, though. I think Chex will go for the boss after he gets all the items out of here, or as many as he wants, rather. He has to be thinking about go mode with both rods, 3 bottles, and 2 swords.
Yeah, it's awful though. Even like Ganon isn't good. He has Moon Pearl, so it's a little less painful for him to retry Ganon. But he would want to have some kind of magic refill going in there. It's a little worse for Krithel because he doesn't have Moon Pearl. But the thing he needs is, he needs to know if Swamp's a crystal, and then if it's a pendant, then he's in Chex's position. Pretty much 1-to-1. They have the same equipment with some differences. Krithel's bow is a big one. Chex is not going to find that bow. He might find the other bow, but he's not going to find that bow. And that bow is going to, that's going to make Eastern so much better. Bowless Eastern does exist. Using a pretty new quadrant glitch discovered by Mr. Byard. If there's a new quadrant glitch, you can probably count on Mr. Byard being the one who discovered it. But this really helped out because skipping bow used to be a triple YBA, and that was awful because you had to do 3 of those same frame tricks in a row. And now you can do it with just 1.
Yeah, the quadrant glitch method isn't that bad. For the potion one, you really need to know the time bomb setup, though, for the YBA, in my opinion. Well, Chex doesn't, because he can do the juke method to get on the right pixel, but I think that not everybody is as good at that as Chex is, though.
Yeah, the thing that makes that one hard is that the door you're doing it in is very deep, because it's on a lower layer. So you can't see yourself like you normally can. You can't just walk to the last pixel and know you're on the last pixel. You have to do some kind of setup to get you there.
Yeah, I like the Samaria version of that Bolus Eastern better, even though it is slower because you have to quadrant glitch twice.
So this is going to be a moment of truth for Krithel. He's going to find it's a 50-50 chance that each of his remaining dungeons is a pendant or a crystal. And finding one or the other here will change those odds for Swamp. Alright, nice fight. Playing very aggressively and it pays off. He gets a pendant, bad news, so now it's a 1 in 3 chance for Swamp. I think he will be a little bit less in go mode now, because those odds just went a little bit south for him. I did mention earlier that there's new tech to get around it, but that new tech requires the hook shot, and probably the lamp, probably the mirror, and probably a little bit more time than he had to learn it, because it was discovered like 2 days ago, so I wouldn't count on that. I think it's a little more likely that he finds the flippers or cane.
Yeah, that's a rough situation, having the hardware disadvantage like that. So Chex did not defeat Helmasaur. He decided to go to Pod, or go to Hera instead.
This is interesting because what this will do for him is it will unlock Hera, and then he can fight Moldorm and find out if Pod is a crystal or a pendant by killing a boss that he knows has a crystal. So if it is a pendant Pod, he can save time not killing Helmasaur. But it's not really saving time because like Krithel just did this normally and it was a little faster for him. Krithel doing Pod isn't really going to slow him down that much compared to what Chex is doing here.
Well, this is just cave state, so he's just unlocking it. Unless I'm missing.
Oh, he's not in Pod. He's in cave.
Yeah.
Of course. It's the Pod Vicky all over again. He'll get the nothing crystal from Moldorm. You can still kill Moldorm. He'll be dead. But yeah, this makes sense. He also has no sprites. There's no Moldorm. Moldorm's like off screen somewhere. You can actually hear him.
Yeah, I always thought that was weird. You can just hear the movement noise. It's kind of creepy.
Krithel's going for the glitch that gets to Helmasaur. And I say the glitch, it's because you basically do it every seed. It's the way to get to Helmasaur. It's called statue drag. And it's a little hard to explain, but he has stored a statue pulling state and is using it to get through these doors without triggering them. And his camera is broken and he can get to Helmasaur that way.
It's basically just a more complicated juke.
It really is.
You're moving south in the underworld map, even though you're screen wrapping on the same visually on the same super tile.
Yeah, this room is below the room he was in, and that is like one of the only ways to juke north doors, which is why it was such a big discovery when it was found. I think Pod used to be like a nightmare dungeon for people before this was known, because it was just so hard to skip the requirements for it. Krithel has a bit of a... he's thinking about it. He's gonna drink it. Alright. Besides that, the statue drag is more valuable than whatever he might do with that potion later. He has the flute, so getting it back is very easy for him. That was a good decision. You don't want to die here.
Yeah, the longer that the seed goes on, the bigger of an advantage that flute will be.
Crystal Pod, we're back to 50-50 for Swamp. I wonder if he will... So, rushing... I don't think rushing TR is really an option for him. He doesn't have the resources to do Turtle Rock at the moment. Chex actually has the map of Pod. Interesting. So, he can go back there at any time and do it for an item and a little bit of progress. Chex is actually going to Bumper Ledge. And from Bumper Ledge, he will go to probably Skullwoods.
Yeah, I learned this clip recently, and I'm not convinced it's faster because you have to bomb clip up here, but it certainly looks cool, though. There's some hundo tech there for RMG.
Okay, so this makes sense. You do Thieves Town first because you know it's a crystal. I can't believe neither of them has been to Thieves Town yet. Thieves Town has been like the freest dungeon for them for a long time. Krithel can get those mitts there too if he goes to Thieves Town. He can't just walk there, he has to do some shenanigans to get here, but he has options, and it is a crystal dungeon. Was that his first flute activation? Oh, the flippers are here! This is really good news for Krithel. So he will not be at a disadvantage for his console anymore when he does Thieves. This is going to be a huge relief for him. He doesn't have to worry about swamping a crystal. He even gets a sword out of it. But right now, those things belong to Chex. Krithel hasn't found them yet, so he has to go there before he knows about it. But it is good to know that those are waiting for him.
Yeah, sword and flippers right away in Thieves Town. Pretty stacked front.
Yeah. This has been such a free dungeon for Chex, too, since he found the Moon Pearl. If that powder was indeed in Mire, I don't think Krithel will ever see it. But Krithel will also show us why you don't really need a Moon Pearl. It's just a speed item. Moon Pearl for him is
setting up a fake.
Yeah, this is basically it's a YBA in the overworld, and it puts you in the flute menu. And then when you land, you are Super Bunny, and you can pull Thieves Town or a tree and become Link temporarily. We'll go in here, and he's going to take some damage on this guy, because he really just wants to be in fake Dark World. And he will be very relieved to find the flute and the sword in the front. I said flute. He'll find the flippers.
Well, there's the bow, the other bow. In the attic there for Chex.
Well, so the one big advantage Krithel had is kind of gone, which is unfortunate for him.
Yeah.
I would say
Silvers will save.
Silvers are
will
a
save
good
a
time
non-zero. It's
Yeah.
a non-zero amount of time save. It's not much, but it's something.
It's enough to make the trip worth it, but it's not the same magnitude as having it for Eastern. Having the bow for Eastern was a big deal for him, and now they both have it. I imagine he won't even really... I don't know if he even knows that Chex doesn't have the other bow, but he probably won't be happy to see that there's one this free.
Yeah, that's true. But looking at it though, so they both have 2 crystals right now, and possibly Krithel has more info than Chex right now.
Krithel doesn't have the tempered sword. He go moded. He's starting to go mode, I think. He just skipped the chest that had the bow. Because what he did was he went to the flipper chest and opened it, and then death warped. And now the chest with the sword in it is kind of out of the way. It's a weird little bit of circumstance that led to him being sword disadvantaged. So Chex's sword is actually a bigger deal than Krithel's silvers. I didn't think about that happening. It's such a weird thing to happen. It makes sense.
I didn't anticipate that either.
And if it was nothing, it would be like, oh, cool, he thought of this cool, like, oh yeah, it doesn't make sense to get that chest anymore. It's a little bit unfortunate that it was a sword.
It's a tree warpable sword too, which would be relevant. Or no, it's not. I'm sorry. It's in the other room.
It's not. You don't need a tree warp with tempered sword. Come on. That's just showing off.
Well, not in this seed, but I don't know. In some seeds, it might be worth it.
It might be dupable by some other means. I don't think it is, though. Chex found Mire Medallion on blind, which is, it's just not going to get used. I think. Like, yeah, if Krithel had... If it was a crystal, it would be really good for Krithel. He'd go in and find powder. He wouldn't turn in the powder, though. But he would find it. He would have a chance. Chex is not go moding as hard as I thought he would. But it's also a very bad go mode. Even with the sword and the flippers. Still no new information for him on his map.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Chex is doing some extra item checks, but there's always that nagging thought that maybe you missed something like super helpful that was just on the way, I think.
Chex is he tends to be oscillate between this really aggressive go moding and being a thorough runner, and I've noticed that he does the thoroughness more often in tournament races. Maybe when he's playing by himself, he's likely to challenge himself with these low percent go modes because he wants to see how low his collection rate can go. But in a race setting, you are balancing that with the risk reward of finding items that your opponent might not have. Even the map of Turtle Rock is really good. Check. No, it was really good.
That's a really
the map
good
of
item.
Turtle Rock. So Krithel won't get that because of his Moon Pearl situation. Very unlikely that he gets it. So he will find out.
Doesn't that?
Oh, Swamp's a pendant.
Doesn't it also tell us?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Kane on
here
Stumpy.
Too. I don't think Krithel's going to get that.
Oh.
I think he's rushing dungeons now. So this is the value of doing checks. It's you find things like the Cane and even the map of Turtle Rock, and suddenly you have a huge lead on your opponent. I think he had a small lead before, and now it's like, if Krithel doesn't get those, I think that's an nearly insurmountable lead. Like, it's really hard to get around.
And that was
Moon Pearl, Cane.
That was so... Sorry, I just can't get over that. That was really lucky that those two back-to-back overworld checks both were really helpful. Like, one was information that he needed, another was Samaria, arguably like the best item in this mode, or at least like top 3 or so.
Yeah, Krithel went back into Thieves Town to go to Eastern and unlock it. This is something Chex will probably have to do as well. Now he can just go in normally and do it.
Yeah, Chex can delete the door with the Samaria. He doesn't have to do this.
Oh, you're right. The Samaria is huge, actually. I didn't realize that Krithel's third bottle was not Chex's third bottle. So he has 4 bottles now. So Chex is doing a overworld clip to Ice Palace. It kind of makes sense. The overworld checks he did makes sense now that he is going to Ice. On the other hand, he could have just swam there from the save and quit because he has the mids. Chex is in a very, I would call this a comfortable go mode now. It's amazing how comfortable this got just from finding the Cane, but there's really nothing, like anything more you want is a little bit greedy. Like, yeah, you want the hook shot a little bit, but like, you don't need it.
Yeah, the Samaria makes TR a lot less stressful too, as you can just delete the door instead of doing the double YBA.
Krithel's making progress in Eastern, which is a dungeon Chex we'll have to do later. Krithel's playing really well right now. I want to point this out. Just because Chex has a huge lead doesn't necessarily mean that he's playing better. Both of them have been executing near flawlessly all the glitches that they need to do. I think the only major execution problem we saw was the Chex missing a YBA once, so he had to go back to Desert, but in the grand scheme of things, in no logic, that doesn't cost that much time compared to how much that time would matter in like a casual boot seed.
Well, Chex is opening more chests here in Ice.
Oh, the Turtle Rock Big Key is worth it.
Too?
Yeah, that's worth it. That's suddenly he doesn't have to do a glitch anymore in TR. He can just go there and kill Trinex. Oh my goodness.
And
That's
the
just-
hook shot.
that's
Oh,
just-
come on.
That's just too easy. I don't think he can really like easily hook push, but he definitely can. Eastern Palace, I think, will be done with hook pushing now. It will save time over what he would have to do.
Yeah,
I
could
think it
do
even-
a powder index if you want
Yeah,
to.
no, I think even over having the big key of Eastern, it's still faster for him to hook push.
Yeah, if he does the save and quit and just does it from the front door, then yeah.
Yeah, now depending on how aggressively he plays, Krithel could find those too. Because this isn't a crystal dungeon that he will probably head to as soon as he, moves on to his next progress. But he doesn't have the powder, so he can't do the hook push setup that Chex can do. He won't really need to anyway because he's already done this. The Turtle Rock Big Key doesn't do as much for him because he doesn't have the cane. Although it does give him an easier path to Aga 2. Now here's Chex setting up his variable. This is called search index, and it makes the hook pushing work. He has one try. So we'll go into Eastern and he'll attempt the hook push once. And if it fails, he'll have to do another index set somewhere. He's going for beams. He doesn't really need them because he has Fire Rod, but it does make the hook push a little easier.
Yeah, I think some people don't trust fire rod distance for certain hook pushes. It's just from some of the people I've talked to. But yeah, I've definitely done that push like with fighter sword and fire rod, so it's possible.
I think for that one you want to Oh, Krithel wants to drink magic here. Or consume magic. Okay, yeah, you can do that here. So here's Chex doing the
So it
hook
looks
push.
like yeah, it was very successful. See, that
Yeah.
first block, the slot 9 block, was what he had one shot at doing.
Yeah, this is a
Otherwise, he
huge
would
time
have had to
save.
save and quit.
Oh, look at that! I never noticed that. Small key of this dungeon in Desert Palace. We didn't see it from Chex because he was in Visual Vomit when he was here. These simultaneous crystals too. Gosh, they're both going so fast. But I mean, Chex just has a huge advantage equipment-wise. But Krithel is also moving really fast for what he has. This is about as fast as it gets. So now he has a problem because I don't think he knows that Turtle Rock is the last crystal. But he's kind of preparing for Turtle Rock. Like, that's what he wants it to be. He's buying a bunch of potions, very deliberately choosing his colors, just like an artist. I would know. I also use paint to make glitches. This will be an Ice Palace play. So Chex had the Moon Pearl. He did an overall glitch to get there. If you don't have the Moon Pearl, the way to do it is to go through this door here using a potion.
So, meanwhile, Chex is setting up his statue drag. We saw this earlier from Krithel, if you missed it earlier. This is the way that you go to Helmasaur, as you do. You know, completely normally.
Statue bonk. I mean, this really is normal. This is the only way. Every once in a while, you'll see someone get fancy and hook push in the back, but it's not even faster unless you're already there. Chex did a VRAM corrupted glitch that was very optional. He could have just gone to green potion. That's not an issue in the seed for a couple reasons. One is that the flippers showed up, and two is that Swamp is a pendant. But I think the thing that really made the difference is Chex's decision to go to Meyer I'm assuming that's where his powder was, because when he checked it, he got the Moon Pearl. And the Moon Pearl allowed him to do some overworld checks in the South Dark World. And he found his cane and his Turtle Rock map. And while in Ice, he found the hook shot and he has hook pushing. Krithel doesn't have hook pushing. He probably won't even get the Ice Big Chest because he's in go mode. He might, but even if he does, he doesn't really have any use for that hook shot. We can tell that Krithel's on Super NT because he's using an MSU pack, and you can't do that on Mister. Chex has 1 crystal left. Yeah, this is breakneck speed for him. Once he gets fully powered like this is kind of how it goes for him. Really, for both of them.
Yeah, but Chex just has the item loadout advantage. It's probably too much at this point, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, nobody, even like a second Chex couldn't keep up with first Chex. Like you just can't. Like, and if there is ever a second Chex in the world, it's Krithel. So, oh, here's another thing: is Krithel doesn't have bombs. He's not getting that hook shot, which I don't think is a big deal. I don't think he needs it. But also, he didn't have the cane. And he is in a situation where he needs to fight Cold Stare on Master Sword. And that could be a bit of a challenge as well. But he had to Ice Palace bomb jump, so he's a bit down health. Had to take a longer path. He's out of bombs. And he'll need them for Turtle Rock.
Nice mirrorless screen wrap from Chex to get to Laser Bridge.
Chex skipping everything there because there's really nothing he could find that will speed him up at this point. Okay, Krithel is handling this very well. He knows that he can't be too aggressive on this fight, so he's taking it very safe. Woo! Wow. I think most people would have gotten hit there.
Now Chex into the Trinex fight.
Very nice damageless Cold Stare. A lot of
that
close
was
calls.
A really good fight.
Oops. Chex gets hit, but that's okay. It won't slow him down. Okay. So now Krithel has to make that choice between Turtle Rock and Swamp, and he's going probably to Fake Flute to get up to Turtle Rock. Because he did buy a blue potion and 2 reds. He's fluting. Okay, he needs to buy bombs. I think that's what this is. Yes. Good.
So
good to remember
going to show us some. This is some all bosses tech. It's a quadrant glitch followed by an STC to get to Aga 2.
Yeah, there's an easier one you can do in the room above, but this does save. It saves about 7 or 8 seconds, I think, if you can pull it off. But it's a little harder. But he gets it. He's been learning the all bosses speedrun. He's really, I say been learning. He's just been running it. He's learned it, and this is in it, so he's very practiced at it. Alright, Krithel item dashing here to ensure that he's used some magic so he can fake flute again. We saw him do this earlier. This will get him up the mountain to get to Turtle Rock. And he will, I think in his perspective, blind pull the crystal there, which will be very cool. You can really see how, like, despite the equipment difference, they're only Turtle Rock apart and Aga 2. So, the efficiency with which Krithel has gone through the seed is very impressive.
I definitely agree. It's just that Krithel, his route, just got, he got randoed pretty much. It's
He got
items
randoed a little
that were
bit.
great weren't in his way.
I think GT being empty was a big blow to him. And I had said earlier that Meyer was empty, but then suddenly, like, apparently Powder was there, and he got Moonpearl out of it. So I was like, Moonpearl's too powerful. We need to get rid of it. No Moonpearl. Just take it out of the pool.
I don't know about that.
I mean, come on, you don't need it, right? You just drink your problems away. Drink your blue potions and become a bunny that can walk and pull things, and then you can become a Link and do everything you need to do.
Oh no.
This is really bad for
push
Krithel.
up instead of down? Yeah,
yes.
you have to specifically press down to not be soft locked for this Dark World DMA.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because if you're used to doing this in the Light World, you don't have to do that. Did you find the arrows in Castle Tower? Nope, we did. And we thought they would be a bigger deal than they were. Turns out the arrows didn't matter for Chex at all. I don't think he even used his bow in the seed. I think he may have used it for Armos itself, but I don't think he used it to get anywhere.
Well, the hook shot bailed him out. He didn't have to go through the red Igor room.
But I'm a little concerned about Krithel. I think maybe he hard reset his console and that broke something in his capture because he is streaming from Jupiter right now. But it won't matter too much. I think Check's finishing will probably prompt him to finish as well. Oh, here we go. I see a flash. Let's go. Yeah, he might finish us off. He only has one dungeon left. Okay, no, he did forfeit. So yeah.
And Chex has finished with an official time of 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 28 seconds. GG, Chex.
It was a pretty exciting race. I mean, it was really, really cool to see Krithel just keep pace on like one less leg. He lost his save. Oh, that's not good. Well, at least it didn't call the race. I am confused how it looks like there was a crash associated with it because I can see his like menu shows items, but he has no crystals. So something got corrupted, which is something that usually happens in crashes. So Krithel will not be able to join in an interview because of his setup. He doesn't have a mic, but give him your GGs, give him your love. He probably is here in chat in some capacity.
Yeah, Krithel did play very, very well. It's just that the items just happened to not be on his way, and that all the good ones, anyway. It was kind of like GT versus Meyer, like you said.
Yeah, and it snowballed a little bit. And Chex did have, it was a little bit of that risk-reward decision that Chex made to continue doing checks while in go mode, which is something that, you can just not do. He could have gotten his Master Sword and not done Magic Bat and not done South Dark World. So it is, it is a result of decision making. It's not just like random pick out of a hat luck, but that decision could also have not swung his way.
Yeah, Stumpy with the goods, the seed, and then Ice Palace as well. Yeah. We are joined by Chexhuman. GG, Chex.
GG.
Very impressive.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. You get to race me.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait.
I can't wait. I will try not to just rando you with the ice rod hunts, which is kind of what seems to have happened in the last couple races between us. One way or the other. But this race was actually very close, despite the significant equipment difference between you. You found a Moonpearl. I think you got it out of the powder from Meyer.
Yeah.
Krithel didn't go to Meyer.
Meyer Hut.
Yeah, Krithel didn't go there at all. So he went to GT instead and found nothing.
I mean, he did get the flute and the hair big, but yeah, pretty much nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Moon Pearl, meant that also he didn't do South Dark World, no Cane, no Turtle Rock map, which is why he didn't know about it. But didn't matter because he was going really fast and doing dungeons, and he was only one behind you in the end game.
Okay, that makes sense. I well played by Krithel, and Krithel could have easily won, but I got really lucky at the end when I was playing from behind a little.
Were you playing from behind?
I was playing from behind because I was nervous and just was making mistakes at the beginning.
Like mentally,
and
yeah.
so,
We're always playing from behind in that state.
yeah, and the nerves hit me really hard, and so I just didn't know what to do. So just had to keep being thorough until I realized I was really in a huge rupee hunt, which took me all through pod. And so I did all
I
the pods.
didn't even notice the rupees on it.
Because I had pretty much nothing. I bought as much potions as I could, then I went to pod, and then decided to just be thorough. And then all I really wanted was to keep being thorough and to get information. And so I got really lucky by skipping Skullwoods and choosing Ice as one of 3 dungeons I could do for.
I didn't even think about the fact that you hadn't done Skullwoods, because we got that information from Krithel doing it, which it's just something that you do. Like you go down the mountain, you do Skullwoods. You didn't, because you had a dungeon you could do that you knew was a crystal, and like, okay, that makes sense. But after that, you got that Turtle Rock map, and I thought, okay, you have full info. You actually didn't. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, so it was pretty extraordinary. So I got really lucky, and just, again, well played by Krithel through 2 rounds and through all of Krithel's travels. So
yeah, he definitely kind of went the extra mile to do these races from traveling. It's not easy to do that and to play on a setup that's not optimal for no logic or for streaming. And he played very well. Probably doesn't have a whole lot of time to practice at night, but he pulled it off, getting just 1 dungeon behind and executing nearly flawlessly. I don't think he had, other than the very end, I don't think he had any like major issues besides just doing the wrong checks.
Yeah, it was a really fun race to watch. They were both runners executed very well.
yeah, so how was some of Krithel's routing through Swamp, for example?
Swamp? There was no swamp.
There was no swamp. That's right.
There was no
Never
swamp.
mind.
Swamp was very pendant, but he didn't know that. So he did Turtle Rock because it's the easier one to do with his equipment.
Okay, I was so worried about the seed being a bottles only seed, but I didn't really think about how Swamp would be the major issue.
Krithel was doing really well with only bottles. Like he's
yeah,
he just did it. Like it wasn't even, he made it look easy, but it definitely was a lot easier with the cane and the hook shot. Even like your Eastern Palace, not having to go through and unlock the door with the cane and then go back in and do that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it for semifinals. The tournament's about to close. We have to schedule our race at some point, probably next week. That is making me nervous. The way that this tournament works is there is it's kind of like a best of 3 where the upper bracket winner has a 1 game advantage, which means that it could end in 1 race or it could end in 2 races. If I win the next race, that's the end of the tournament. If Chex wins, then there will be a game 2. So stay tuned for that. Keep an eye on the schedule. And keep an eye on the Glitch Tournament server if you want updates on the events that come up later this year. We may run another mentor tournament for Glitch Modes if you want to get into that. Otherwise, we will close this one out. Any final words?
Thanks, Malmo and JD, for for commentating. I don't know who tracked, but thank you. So
Mr. Byer, thank you.
Mr. Byer. Thank you both. See you in the next race.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good night.